She is well into her 90s, sharp and clear, still following every word of a conversation and remembering names she heard only once. She takes nothing for her memory, no supplements, no brain training apps, no capsules promising clarity, nothing at all. And yet she has outlived not just her friends' bodies, but their minds, one by one, over the years. Her sharpness came not from a pill or a puzzle or any product the modern world sells, but from how she lived and how she thought, day after day, year after year. By the end, you will know all 6 mental habits that shaped her mind across a lifetime. And the last one is the habit the modern world has most thrown away, and possibly the one that matters most. The Japanese call it Ikigai. It is the reason to get up in the morning, and for these elders, it never retires. An old woman tends a garden, not because the garden is large or famous, but because the seedlings still need water and the soil still answers her hands. A grandfather opens his shop at dawn because a neighbor might need a bolt or a bit of advice before the day grows hot. The purpose is small and daily, and that's exactly why it holds across the decades without fading. Researchers in the Osaka study asked 43,000 Japanese adults whether their lives held meaning. Over 7 years, those who answered no carried a higher risk of death. The difference wasn't wealth or medicine or family name. It came down to the sense that the next morning still mattered to someone, even if only to a seedling or a neighbor. What pulls them from bed is rarely grand or celebrated. It is only something that still needs doing, a small thread of meaning that runs deeper than any pill or any promise of longevity. The feeling is not dramatic, it is simply the quiet certainty that tomorrow still holds something only you can do. That is the first habit. If you want the rest of these, then do subscribe and stay with me. This is where we sit with how Asia's longest living people actually think slowly the way it deserves. The first one gives them a reason to wake. This next one is the reason they never grow lonely. And loneliness, it turns out, does something frightening to the aging brain. In Okinawa, they call it a moai. It's a circle of friends who commit to each other for life, meeting to talk, to share a cup of tea, and to walk across the village to check on one another when someone doesn't appear. The bond isn't casual, it's a promise kept across decades, as reliable as the sunrise. And it's not only in Okinawa. Across Asia, elders live in multi-generational households where the noise of grandchildren is the background music of old age, and where an elder's opinion is still asked before a decision is made. They're never left to sit in silence for long. The National Institute on Aging reviewed data from over 600,000 people, and the findings struck hard. Loneliness raises the risk of dementia on the same order as physical inactivity or smoking. The brain doesn't waste away from lack of puzzles alone. It suffers when the voice across the table falls silent and the room stays empty. One reliable conversation, however brief, is a form of protection they have known all along. That is the second habit, woven from conversation and care. They never let the mind sit idle, and the way they keep it working is older than any brain training app. In Singapore, an elder moves mahjong tiles with the same focus she once used to balance accounts. In China, a grandfather practices calligraphy every morning not to become a master, but because the brush demands his full attention and the stroke order must be right. They read newspapers, memorize poems, and argue about politics with the vigor of people half their age. The learning isn't a program or a certificate. It's daily maintenance, like sweeping the floor or boiling water for tea, done without fanfare and without end. Regular cognitively stimulating activity is associated with lower dementia risk, and creative pursuits and games are among the strongest associations. The brain doesn't need to be drilled like a machine or rescued by an app. It needs to be used like a hand, flexed and warmed by ordinary work that still demands care and precision. The Western world sells brain games as if the mind were a muscle to be isolated and exercised. These elders never isolated it because they simply kept it busy with living. And that is the third habit, learn from ordinary work. Let me ask you something. Of these habits so far, which one is already quietly part of your life? Tell me below. I read every answer and they shape what we look at next. This next one isn't about doing more, it's about a kind of calm the modern world has almost forgotten how to hold. Across East Asia, there's a deep cultural value placed on calm and measured response. A Korean elder receives difficult news with a slow nod rather than an outburst. A Japanese grandfather absorbs an insult and answers with silence that weighs more than any shouted word. They're not emotionless, they're simply slow to let feeling become reaction, and they know that chronic stress wears on the aging body and mind in ways no medicine fully undoes. This restraint isn't suppression or denial, it's a discipline learned early and practiced until it becomes character. The elder who doesn't react immediately gives herself time to choose what the moment actually requires. The pause itself is a small victory, repeated thousands of times across a life. The body thanks her for it, and so does the mind, which stays clearer when it isn't constantly flooded by the chemistry of anger. Pausing before reacting is a form of mental hygiene they have practiced for lifetimes. That is the fourth habit, built from 1,000 small pauses. They apply the same rule to the mind that they apply to the dinner table, and it's not the rule you'd expect. In Okinawa, elders say harahachibu before a meal. It means stop eating when the stomach is 80% full. They apply the same restraint to the mind. They practice wanting enough rather than more. A Taoist farmer in China tends his small plot and does not lie awake craving his neighbor's larger field. A Buddhist grandmother in Thailand releases a grudge because holding it costs more than letting it go, and she has lived long enough to know the price. Contentment lowers the constant low background stress of striving. The mind that always wants the next thing is never at rest. It is always planning, comparing, reaching. The mind that has learned to stop at 80% has room to breathe, to notice, and to remember what matters. The modern world never says enough, but these elders learned to say it long ago, and that is the fifth habit. And here is the one I promised you, the habit the modern world threw away without realizing what it cost. Across Korea, China, and Southeast Asia, elders don't retire from usefulness. They teach the young, hold the family accounts, and care for grandchildren while parents work. In Confucian tradition, the elder's wisdom is still asked before a major decision is made. In the multi-generational household, they're the memory of the family, the one who remembers how to cook a dish, how to heal a cough with leaves from the garden, and how to behave at a funeral so the dead are honored properly. The grandchildren do not always listen, but they know who to ask when the rice sticks or the fever rises. Research shows that providing social support is more strongly linked to well-being than receiving it. Being needed sustains purpose and connection at once. The elder who still has a role doesn't wake up wondering if the day matters. She already knows it does because someone still relies on her for something only she can give. Asking for an elder's wisdom is a gift to the giver. That's the sixth habit, and it's the one the modern world has most forgotten. It was never the crossword or the capsule. It was a whole way of holding the mind across decades, gentle but unbroken. Purpose, belonging, a mind kept working, calm, contentment, and being needed. 6 habits, none of them expensive, none of them requiring a download or a prescription or a trip to a specialist. The modern world treats the aging mind as a machine to be drilled with brain games and rescued with pills. These elders treated it as a life to be lived with meaning. They didn't know the names of the studies, and they didn't read the meta-analyses or wait for peer review. They simply lived in ways that modern research keeps confirming, as if science were slowly catching up to what grandmothers already knew without ever needing to prove it. The studies on purpose, on loneliness, on the working mind, they all keep arriving at the same door these elders walked through long ago, without ever being told it was there. None of this surprised the elders. They were never told they needed to know it. They carried it out morning by morning, habit by habit, until the habits became the person and the person became the proof. We have traded these quiet disciplines for louder promises, and the loss is not visible until the mind begins to drift. The mind doesn't need to be rescued. It needs to be lived with, and that's the quiet lesson they left behind. If this gave you something worth keeping, then subscribe and stay a while. There are many more of these quiet lessons to come, and the next one is already being prepared. And if you want to know the 6 things Asia's oldest people eat every single day, watch this video next.